Alex, your sex tape.
Because it kept slipping my mind, and then the next thing I knew, it went up. It went up to the cloud.
And you can't get it down from the cloud?
Nobody understands the cloud. It's a mystery.
What is the cloud? No, it's not a rain cloud. The cloud isn't a cloud at all, but a term that is used to describe how data is stored and accessed. Large amounts of data from many different places go into one central location called a data warehouse. The data is then stored on servers where businesses, the government, and regular people can access the data they have put onto the servers. Data storage is a vague term. Using its most basic and obvious definition, it is the storage of information. How that information is collected and stored has changed over the years as technology has become more advanced and more intertwined with our everyday functions as a society. Picture a doctor's office and how it has changed from an archaic system with oversized filing cabinets filled with folders containing all the individual patient's personal and medical information to a computerized system where all of that information is now held on a cloud server, which can be accessed by your doctor instantly. Although much more efficient, these kinds of advancements don't come without their own detriments. Information being stored could be hacked or accessed illegally by a third party. That's where the government must step in and use the judiciary and legislative branches to implement and enforce laws that will protect us and our personal information from being illegally obtained. In the United States, there isn't one single regulatory authority overseeing data protection, but instead it is regulated primarily by industry on a sector-by-sector basis. It takes the combined focus and enforcement muscle of the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, state attorneys generals, the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and other financial and banking regulators, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Department of Education to enforce their data security laws in each of their individual sectors. Taken together, this enforcement ecosystem has proven to be nimble, flexible, and effective in adapting to rapidly changing technological developments and practices, responding to evolving consumer and citizen expectations while serving as meaningful agents of deterrence and accountability. In the financial world, the need for government policy to regulate the practices and operations of financial institutions for our safety is obvious. Financial institutions contain almost all of our most vital personal information, such as social security numbers, account numbers, and addresses. There are hundreds of policies that regulate the financial institutions and their overall practices. However, focusing on the ones that have a direct impact on those institutions' data storage and security practices leads us to a few extremely vital policies. The Dodd-Frank legislation was enacted in 2010 after the financial crisis of 2007 and 8, where as a country we saw the greatest financial crisis since the Great Depression. The Dodd-Frank legislation altered the existing financial regulations to promote financial stability by improving accountability and transparency in the financial system. Another monumental legislation would be the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which required institutions that offer financial products or services, such as loans, to explain their information sharing practices with customers and to safeguard sensitive data. By safeguarding sensitive data, which applies to all non-public information, the legislation requires financial institutions to develop, implement, and maintain a comprehensive information security program that contains administrative, technical, and physical safeguards designed to protect the security, confidentiality, and integrity of customers' information. Both policies are enforced by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. As technology advances forward, making our lives more and more technologically dependent, society needs to be conscious of the scope and vulnerability of the technologies we use and the information that those technologies contain. One of the biggest struggles that face our society is locating the balance between freedom and security in all aspects of life, especially in data security. When does trying to keep us and our information secure cross the line into becoming a hindrance on our constitutional freedoms? In the Constitution of the United States, the Fourth Amendment states that it protects the people's right to be secure in their persons, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. However, this constitutional right says nothing about stored information. In 1974, Congress enacted the Federal Privacy Act, regulating government databases, and found that the right to privacy is a personal and fundamental right protected by the Constitution of the United States. It is generally acknowledged that the U.S. Privacy Act represented the first official embodiment of the fair information principles and practices that have been incorporated into many other data protection regimes. Under the Privacy Act, There must be no data storage systems whose existence is kept secret. There must be a way for an individual to find out what information about themselves is in a record and how it's used. There must be a way for an individual to prevent information about them obtained for one purpose from being used or made available for other purposes without their consent. Up until now, it appears all these laws are ethically accepted by society. However, there are laws in place whose ethical implications are much more questionable. The Patriot Act, for instance, gave law enforcement and intelligence authorities unprecedented domestic authority and the tools to wield that authority to thwart plots against the United States. The National Surveillance Agency, NSA, implemented dragnet surveillance of the American public without their knowledge or consent to protect the country as a whole. They could peer into every online database to see all of your personal information, both what you make public and everything you keep private. There is a very good chance that society would have never found out about the NSA and their surveillance practices without Edward Snowden, who infamously blew the whistle on the NSA. The real question becomes, do we value freedom over security or security over freedom? Because it is obvious that society cannot have both. In the educational community, data storage and security plays a substantial role in the way children's personal and educational information is collected and maintained for the duration of their scholastic career. The need for articulated privacy protections and data security continues to grow as statewide longitudinal data systems are built and more education records are digitized and shared electronically. As states develop and refine their information management systems, it is critical that they ensure that student information continues to be protected and that students' personally identifiable information is disclosed only for authorized purposes and under the circumstances permitted by law. Under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, better known as FERPA, the privacy of student educational records is protected by the Department of Education and the FTC. The Elementary and Secondary Education Act covers a wide range of rights and privileges that each child has over their own information. Most important of all is the No Child Left Behind Act, which significantly increased the federal role in holding schools responsible for the academic progress of all students. It also put a special focus on ensuring that states and schools boost the performance of certain groups of students, such as English language learners, students in special education, and poor and minority children whose achievement, on average, trails their peers. As we discussed before, the No Child Left Behind Act has created an issue in the way information is stored for public education. In an article in the journal Technological Horizons in Education, Justine Brown says, the No Child Left Behind Act, with its mandates for collecting and documenting student achievement statistics, has fueled a surge in the volume of data collected by schools, districts, and the state education departments. This forces us to ask the question, where do we put it? Where do we store this abundance of data on every student in the public school district? The answer is simple: data warehouses. Data warehouses are exactly what they sound like: large facilities used to store extreme amounts of data. With the help of these warehouses, administrators are able to use data analysis tools to analyze student performance throughout their educational career. But are these data warehouses ethical? Jill Abbott, a learning strategist who researches common technology framework for schools, says the first thing that needs to be understood is that data warehouses are tools, not solutions. Most student data is stored in data warehouses, but is that data safe? Is this collection of data ethical? Over 95% of public schools utilize cloud software to store students' personal information, attendance records, and grades. However, in a House of Representatives joint hearing on how data mining affects student privacy, it was noted that a report by the Fordham Law School found that cloud services used by school districts are poorly understood and have a lack of transparency, finding 20% of school districts did not have proper policies in place for the use of these services. Fewer than 7% restrict the sale of student information by vendors. Cybercriminals have become more sophisticated in their tactics and techniques, evidenced by the increasing number of cyber breaches at universities, schools, and retailers. Parents do not have a full understanding of the ways in which school districts store their child's information, and a call for greater transparency is needed to ensure all data collection regarding students is ethical. The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, better known as FERPA, is a federal law that was established in 1974 to ensure the privacy of student records, except for directory information, which is student information that would not be considered harmful if disclosed. FERPA establishes when and what type of information school districts can share with private vendors. It also protects the information of student testing scores from tests such as the SAT, PARCC, and ACT. Higher education also has ethical standards in which it must collect and store data. It must obey the standards set by FERPA, but the Patriot Act of 2001 following 9/11 made it legal to share private student data if deemed dangerous to the country. This setback to student institution confidentiality called for a reform in the way statistical information is shared with the government. The Patriot Act did not just affect data collected from institutions. All branches of society were impacted. Information technology and data storage creates opportunities for social change, including a shift in distributions, power, capital, rights, and security. 2.5 exabytes of data are created every day. That's 2.9 times 10 to the 18 gigabytes. If the average monthly cellular data of a consumer is represented by a freight train with 13 cars, data collected in a single day would be represented by the Earth. Data collection is doubling approximately every 18 months. This data includes information collected by scientific instruments, stock trading information, bank deposits, police network traffic, and consumer network traffic. The term big data can be used to describe the exponential growth of data storage and our ability to make use of it. Society is greatly affected by the use of big data. This impact is made in three categories: quality of life, advertising, and environmental. The data centers that store all this information have a large environmental footprint. The environmental effects are due to the physical requirements to maintain data storage and networks. Batteries are used for uninterruptible power supplies that prevent damage to the system when there are fluctuations. The majority of batteries are lead acid by composition, which require destructive mining and refining processes to obtain the necessary raw materials. Secondly, the coolant used in data centers are chlorofluorocarbons, which are known to cause ozone depletion and have a high global warming potential, trapping heat within the atmosphere. Due to the fast-paced rate of technology, hardware used for data storage becomes obsolete relatively quickly, generating large and consistent contributions to e-waste. Another unavoidable cost in the industry is the diesel fuel used to power the generators to keep data centers running in a local power outage. These massive generators must periodically burn off unused diesel before it becomes unusable due to age. Personalized advertising is based on massive amounts of personal data that is collected from where we go, what we are doing, and what we are liking and sharing. As we progress into a digital age, storage costs continue to decrease and processing power continues to increase. With this, companies are able to store data that previously would have been deemed unimportant and sift that raw data, determining purchasing patterns that would have previously gone unnoticed. For example, the pharmaceutical company Merck found that cold weather had a negative effect on allergy medication sales. Therefore, during the unseasonable cold March and April in 2013, Merck cut the budget for advertising since the cold weather suppressed allergens that drew consumers to the drugstore. With all this information, promotions can be tailored to individual users, allowing more effective and targeted advertising, which in turn creates profits for companies.
Listen, I was trying to buy this handcrafted mahogany wood model of a B-25 Mitchell Panchito aircraft.
Aw, for me?
Don't sass me. And I went to this website and this ad popped up that said, "Hey, Ron Swanson, check out this great offer."
What's your question?
My question is, what the hell?
Like, how do they know who you are?
Yeah.
Okay. There are these things called cookies, where, like, if you go to a site and buy something, it'll remember you and then create ads for other stuff you might want to buy.
So it learns information about me? Seems like an invasion of privacy.
Dude, if you think that's bad, go to Google Earth and type in your address.
As you can see in the video, Ron Swanson shows that the idea of being watched is extremely unsettling. Quality of life is a factor during the transition into an age where data is so readily collected and stored. Big data drives services like accurate weather information, transactions, social media, sensors, mobile data, and even beloved memes. Readily available information makes life more convenient. Services like banking and shopping that used to only exist in brick-and-mortar forms are now available from the couch, where pants are optional. With a vast collection of personal data, issues with security are present. Data leaks and hacks are an issue that all retailers and web services are combating. Businesses use data for many different reasons. Some use it for advertising, some use it to keep in touch with clients, and some use it to store all their clients' information. Businesses originally kept all this data as paper records, but have transitioned to keep their data on servers, which can either be at the business or on the cloud. The cloud presents many challenges for businesses when it comes time to decide how to use the client's information. The first problem with the cloud is security. It is usually up to the data centers to provide security, but there has been an increased movement for businesses to provide security as well. There is no standard for the security provided by data centers other than the basics like encryption, backups, and access control. Like anything else in the business world, the more you pay, the better the product. Better encryption can always be bought, along with better firewalls, but only if you have the money. A second problem with the cloud is that everyone's eggs are essentially in one basket. If the servers go down, no one can access their data. A perfect example of this is Amazon. Their entire web services was taken down due to a simple error in their code. There is also the risk that the data storage center could be hacked. If that happens, then the data stored by all the different businesses, most of which are not likely to be the intended target of the hack, are affected. With all of our data in only a few places, the world is just asking for trouble. On the business end of data, there are very complex issues surrounding data storage and security. Who should have access to client data? Should an employee be able to access the data on an unsecured connection from a laptop? Should the company sell this data to advertisers? The easy answers are no, but when you factor in other things, like if the service is free or what type of business it is, the answers become foggy. In a survey of Europeans on healthcare data, about 3/4 of the people surveyed wanted their information stored digitally, citing the healthcare improvements that could be made. About 60% of the people were concerned about who could access this information, and most people were concerned with immediate family members and health insurance viewing their healthcare information. In America, we have a capitalist economy, which means the consumers control the market. If they do not want their healthcare information made public, they will force businesses to keep it private. There could be a huge risk if sensitive information, especially healthcare information, was made public. Like healthcare, most sensitive information that businesses collect could be dangerous if used incorrectly. Many businesses track all the things that each user does on their website. This includes passwords, searches, cookies, and even everything they type. Most online websites remain free by using their information to show you ads. This has been one of the main reasons Google has turned into a giant company, since they essentially sell every keystroke and click you make after you use their search engine. Google's security is most likely top in line, but what about the websites or your web browser? The main problem with cookies is the unintentional ways that your private information can be stolen or leaked. Businesses like Microsoft and Apple that create hardware are forced by consumers to create not only digital security features, but hardware security features as well. Most iPhones cannot be hacked due to their code, and cannot be unlocked unless given a password or a fingerprint. The ability to use biometrics is a great security feature that allows the user to make sure only they can access the data stored in their device. The fight to secure hardware and the data stored on it was recently brought to light in a court case between Apple and the FBI. The FBI wanted Apple to build a backdoor into an iPhone used by a terrorist. Apple would not do it, saying that it could compromise every iPhone built. This battle was put to rest when the FBI paid hackers to access the phone, but the issue of whether the government can force a company to allow law enforcement access to its products and the data on them is still lingering. In recent weeks, the government has voted to repeal restrictions on internet service providers selling your data. This has huge privacy implications, since essentially everything you do on the internet can now be sold to advertisers, and there are very few actions someone can take to protect their privacy. Who do you want to be able to access your data? What restrictions do you want the government to place on a company's ability to collect data? If someone saw what you just looked up, how would that impact your life? These are questions that every person needs to be thinking about and deciding, because if you don't, someone will decide for you.